One day I was watching Hamlet, and in Hamlet, of course, at the beginning, Hamlet's father, as a ghost, appears on the parapet of the castle, and he says, "Revenge my death." And it really struck me, and I thought, what would happen if somebody had a ghost appear to them in 20th century America and said, "Revenge my death"? And I thought, boy, there's a really good idea for a movie.
I was looking for a movie to do, and people were saying a lot of comedies, of course. I said I didn't care what it was, just something that was interesting, and actually I didn't want to do another satire. I was lucky that I had a good relationship with Lindsay Duran, who was an executive at Paramount, who said, well, gee, the best piece of material we have is a script called Ghost.
I was told by Lindsay Duran, "Sit down, I have to tell you something." She said, "Are you sitting?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I have a director for your movie." And I'm going, oh my God. Spielberg, Scorsese, whatever your mind goes to. And she said, "Jerry Zucker wants to direct your movie." I said, "Jerry Zucker? You mean Airplane, Jerry Zucker?"
Bruce Rubin, has famously said he cried when he heard that, was told that Jerry Zucker was directing his movie.
I called Jerry and I said, "Jerry, okay, let's do something. You and I are going to go out to dinner. Let's have a dinner in which we can talk about everything in the world except ghosts." He said, "Okay." So we went out to dinner, and it was one of the great dinners. I mean, we connected. We just bonded.
We did everything together. I didn't run off and rewrite, anything, but we did the structuring together. Bruce did all the writing.
So he was invested in it in a way that most directors don't get invested in material because they haven't been on the journey of creating it. This allowed Jerry, through 19 drafts that we wrote, to come to the point where we almost were at the beginning of both of us understanding this movie completely.
When I sat down and read it, I knew I had to do this movie. But when I started looking into it, tons of actors had turned it down. I'm like, well, why? But then when I started looking at the concept of playing Sam Wheat, you understood. He wasn't a character. They had written him like a ghost who is not present.
It was a very reactive role, and actors tend to like characters that are gritty, talking accents or put on disguises.
And most people think, including me as the writer, when Sam kind of disappears on the page, that he's just not in the scene. But when you start to shoot the movie, this person is there.
His agent called and said, can he read for the role, which Patrick was beyond at this point. He was offered a lot of parts without having to go in and read for it, but he loved this script. He wanted this part. And I guess I just imagined someone different.
Jerry wanted to see him on film, and so we went out and saw the movie Roadhouse. And we walked out of that movie, and Jerry said to me, "Over my dead body."
Jerry Zucker said, "Over my dead body will Roadhouse Patrick Swayze play this role." And I went, oh, that's not promising.
But Patrick, was gutsy, and he wanted the role, so he came in and read for it, which I think more actors that don't have to should.
I did 6 scenes, and at first it was like, okay, prove it, But as I went on, I could feel them warming up, and I warmed up. I started realizing that this could be one of those roles of a lifetime.
He read the end of the movie, and we all had tears in our eyes. As soon as he left the room, I said, well, he's got the part. I mean, it's just, this guy's, he's great.
It was an extremely unique, fantastic love story, and it was on the page. And of all things that I knew, of all the elements, I knew that worked. If someone would have pitched this idea and say, I've got this great idea, it's a love story with a dead guy, with the comic relief as a charlatan, anybody in their right mind would have said thanks, but no thanks.
Demi had done a lot of smaller movies. People certainly knew who she was, but she wasn't a box office star. She wasn't, what they would refer to as bankable.
I mean, Demi was something we all knew from day one. Demi was the person we wanted for this movie. She just seemed to embody Molly, her strength, her power, her beauty, her sweetness. She just had a feel about her that was Molly in my mind.
Molly could be anybody. She's anybody. It doesn't matter. She could have been a banker. She could have been a florist. It's not about what she did. It's about how she feels towards the man she loves.
It's hard when you're casting a love story because sometimes it feels right and sometimes it doesn't. Patrick and Demi, off screen didn't have any particular chemistry. I think it happened on screen.
This is set up as a very straightforward relationship movie. They have some questions, they each have their insecurities, and I think that they're dealt a raw hand.
I heard about ghosts. A friend of mine had come over to my apartment and said, "Oh, I'm getting ready to go to this audition. Every black woman and their mother has been out there trying to get this part. People have raised themselves from the grave to try to get this part." And I went, "Oh," and I called my agent and said, "Is there a reason I haven't heard about it, or should I not even think about it?" And he said, "Well, they don't want you, actually." I said, "Oh, any reason?" Any reason, like I can't even do an audition? They said, "Well, they just feel that you're too well known."
We began this journey of looking at all of these extraordinary African-American actresses in Hollywood, one after another, but they were giving us this drama and this, these incredibly impassioned readings, but the part was falling dead flat.
For Oda Mae, they were going to Oprah Winfrey and Tina Turner and all these different people.
All I know is that every woman of color, people painted themselves to get this part.
So when they were looking to cast these other people, I just had Whoopi stuck in my head.
I had a call from my agent saying, "Remember that movie that they didn't want you for?" I said, "Yes." "Well, they've cast Patrick Swayze." And I thought, "Okay, that's great. Why are you telling me that? Why are you calling me? I'm not managing Patrick." He said, "Well, Patrick doesn't want to proceed unless he can audition with you at least once."
Went to her apartment, and she and I just did the script for Jerry, and they cast her.
Don't you hear? You better.
So many people consider Whoopi a comedian at that time, and it was so not true. I saw a true, brilliant actress.
I do think it was tailor-made, written for me, so I don't feel so bad about other folks not getting it. If anybody can be a scam artist, it's me. Who's the biggest scam artist? Who's got a career because they're a scam artist? Me.
Whoopi took that role and lifted it up like a rocket ship. I mean, she just, they were made for each other.
Carl is in no way a stereotypical kind of young, professional New York guy.
Tony came in and he was, nobody had heard of him before, but he was the husband of the production designer, Jane Muskie.
His agents, convinced them. They said, just let him read like everyone else. And he read on tape because they wouldn't see him, but they said, let him at least do that. So when Jerry went home that weekend, he saw his tape and he came in and he knew we were married. He had met Tony. He came in that Monday morning. He said, I think Tony could do this part. And I was like, really? And I think a lot of the reason he went for it was because he knew we'd be together.
Tony and Jane, because they were together for the shoot of Ghost, they conceived a child.
What Paramount had decided early on was that the most of the film had to be shot in Los Angeles. At that point, when we did it, it was much cheaper to shoot in L.A. versus New York.
We have to cheat it a little bit. Okay, that's much better.
We knew we were bound to the stages at Paramount for most of the work.
Jerry is a great guy, great director too. It's sensitive, smart, no ego.
My memory is coming in prepared and saying, Adam, I thought we'd shoot from here and come around. And Adam looking at the set. And then all of a sudden I'd see him, he'd be in, Jetty, come here, look at it this way, look at it this way. And of course he'd have found a much better way to shoot the scene.
I love Adam. He said he was going to give us the look of a festival movie. This was going to be he's really going to light this movie. And he really did, and it was stunning.
I remember very well, like today, coin comes up to the air and like this, across her face, I even remember his lens, 85mm lens, because I wanted to isolate her from all around. But the lighting, I think, what it does a lot, it's kind of a little bit magic,
I was the youngest of the bunch, so I was very happy to have Adam's input because he had been such a seasoned DP at that point. So we really had a nice time together. Could really sit and talk about the look of it.
We'll do the scene as though you bring...
Jane Muskie is fantastic. She's a New York designer, and it was a New York movie that we were shooting most of in L.A. She really has a fantastic, subtle eye.
Whoa!
If you look at the movie, it doesn't scream, hey, what do you think of the production designer?
I have to be thankful to her because she built such a beautiful loft and she gave us great backing.
We knew that Molly worked at home. She was a practicing artist of some kind. When I designed the loft, I had visited so many lofts, and I remember I went into this one potter's loft where they had basically taken a piece of their living room and had walled it off to create a workspace. Everyone had their own different world. Whoopi's character had a world. We got all the craziness of her older sort of 20s wallpapers where they had these big patterns also, but dark because it was like a seance.
Jane Muskie, she was just able to make everything exactly what it ought to be. Have it pop, but yet be believable. Visually interesting, but yet not to the point where you're just shooting eye candy.
Jerry and I, we had a lot of conflicts, but I feel in a healthy way.
I was so headstrong about that film, felt that it was such great material and that the performances were great, and there were, of course, like any film, there were also times when I wanted to, jump out a window.
It's not the time. It's not the time. It's just that you're done. I'm not talking a long time, Jerry. I'm just talking about stuff. Looks around. Then go.
I love volatile situations as long as it's not about ego, but it's about a mutual goal. I love to scream, yell, holler. And Jerry's not a scream, yell, or hollerer, so I think I was a little intense for him. But we got a really wonderful working relationship because I truly trusted his eye and his heart. I knew when Jerry said he got it, that he got it.
Jerry Zucker let my comedic mind wander. He was, for me, like Steven Spielberg in that he knows what you have in you. So he wants to see what it is. And if there's something he wants to tweak, then he tweaks it.
Jerry did all those airplane movies and stuff, so this guy knows comedy. So he was the perfect being to work with me and Whoopi.
Bruce and I kept telling people, it's going to be a huge hit, don't you see? It's going to be great. And we started to believe it.
I think we all just got to a point where we realized that we were one big happy family that just made a great picture.
It's always the ones that really become a family and really become like a team, and that nobody's out for ego. Everybody's out to do something special. When those moments happen on a film, every time it's successful in my life.
The fact that the potential failure was so high, made it so incredibly good.
Every Sunday morning, Jerry would call me with the numbers. And we would keep beating out all these great films that were coming in that were supposed to be these huge, huge movies. And Ghost was still the movie. It
was a movie that surprised everybody because I don't think anybody was really prepared for the response to it. I don't think anybody was prepared for the response to it, and it suddenly was like this huge blockbuster.
I really think it was a blessing to have that movie come into my life. And it's a blessing to have it change so many other people's lives all over the world and still doing it.
I was floored that we got 5 nominations. I mean, I just never had dreamed of anything like that. And when Whoopi and Bruce won, I could just get up and scream and do a little dance.
You get those movies, if you're lucky, that are just fun. And it was fun to go to work. A pleasure, actually. Not all movies are like that, but this one was.
When I first conceptualized Molly, I wanted her to be a really strong woman. And I thought of her as like a sculptor like Marisol who worked with wood. And I envisioned her with these big blocks of wood and with big hammers and really going at it and really powerful.
Somehow the image of her there bang, bang with a hammer and chisel, it felt like I had somehow a cliche and I don't know whether you would quite believe it.
I think the pottery thing was still that she could be tough, but that the shapes that she could make would be sensuous. Pottery just kind of did all of that.
I was sitting in a scoring session for The Naked Gun, and one of the sound editors had a magazine that she was reading, and it was a pottery magazine. And I said, what is this? And then I think, wait a minute, this could be sensual. Demi took pottery lessons. I remember the two of us went down, and she picked it up much quicker than I did. I couldn't do it, but it was important to her to be credible on screen.
I just didn't want my pot to wobble. It was like a surefire sign that I was no good and I was faking it.
We had potters who had trained her, who were on set when we were shooting, and they actually did start some of the pots, and then Demi would come in and work with them.
Jerry prepared very well the scene. You see, Jerry is director with things ahead of time. He prepares very well mechanically.
There's a lot of footage of things flopping and spattering. You get that machine going too fast, and it's, you know, the whole crew would be covered with pottery.
We were pretty greased up at that mud and clay for quite a while.
This is like, you know, movie secrets. It was like how to have that slip, that wetness, so it was sensual, but not that it spattered all over their faces.
It was a great education and a great exploration of creativity that's very physically inclined. And it's very, very sensual. I mean, even when you're working alone, I mean, just getting your hands in the clay.
Playing in that mud stuff and all over your arms, that was pretty sexy. Definitely got my juices going.
I thought it was really brilliant that it's used within the sensuousness of our love scene.
Nobody expected it to fall. Demi recovered so quickly about, oh, well, she wasn't angry, she wasn't disappointed. In a way, the whole nature of their relationship, it was shown in that moment.
What I like about this scene is simplicity. Simplicity. If you remember, it's a kind of two-shot and he's sitting behind her. And the most simple life.
There was an unbelievable eroticism to the two of them, shaping this very phallic kind of bowl. And then there's the music. There's that incredible song.
Lisa Weinstein, one of the producers, just brought in this tape and said, you know, I think I found the perfect song. The longing of that music, the pain of the music is wonderful.
Once we picked Unchained Melody, and it had such relevance to the story, especially relevance that grew over the time of the story, when Oda Mae gives her body to Sam and allows them to touch again, that touch is filled with that song. It did have a great deal of revival as a result of Ghost, because it was an old song. It came back and has taken on a whole new kind of place in the literature of music.
Everyone also left the set during that because it was one of those moments they only had very basic crew around, and Jerry wanted it very quiet.
People who've looked at the movie closely have said there's something very odd here. They don't have mud on their hands while they're dancing. Why don't they have mud on their hands?
Originally, this love scene with the clay, pottery wheel, and the dancing and everything was more than one scene. But they just kept the camera rolling, and we just kept going. And it was one of those times in both of our careers that I think, you know, something happened, just something came alive.
We had planned to do this incredible love-making scene. Molly has this big cover that she has over one of her statues. It's like a parachute cover, and we thought they would cover themselves with that and make love under this parachute. The electricity of the two of them dancing at that moment, following the pottery scene, was so electric that Jerry said, we don't need the lovemaking. This is the lovemaking.
It's not about jumping somebody's bones that makes a love scene in a movie. It's about the connection between two people in their eyes, and that's what's sexy.
You don't see that much love in people making love. You see it in them being together.
Same thing when you're dancing. If you get that connection, magic happens, electricity and fire happens. And it doesn't matter whether you like the person you're working with. It can be discussed. As long as the camera reads passion. I mean, we had no idea that was going to turn into one of the most famous love scenes in history. Well, we're just actors trying to do the best job we could.
Well, I wasn't sought after. It seems like every major role I've ever gotten, I've had to wind up battling for or really having to work hard to prove myself. My wife and Lisa and my assistant Rosie read this script, and they put it in front of me and sat me down and said, "Read it now," and they were really intense about it. I'm like, "What's going on here?" You know. So I read it, and of course at the end I was totally sobbing. And I felt like I have to do this role, you know, no matter what I have to do to get it. Yet when I was brought up to Jerry Zucker, he said, over my dead body will Patrick Swayze do this role.
Okay, Patrick's version. I know he told you the over my dead body story. He always says that. I swear that I never actually said that, although it's not that far off. But I never uttered those words, Patrick. We'll have to go and debate that.
I said, you know, think what you want, but just let me come in and I'll do the whole script for you if I have to. Now at that time, you know, I had in between movies, I always grow my hair long in case I needed long hair for the next movie. So I had hair down below my shoulders in a ponytail. So I just put it back and tried to, you know, clean it up in the front and wear a suit so I would look as much like a banker as I possibly could. I went in, I think I did 6 scenes, and by the time I was done, they all had tears in their eyes and saying, "You got the role." Actually, everywhere I go in the world, I have women, young and old, big and small, everywhere on the planet, beg me just to say ditto to them. And that line and "Nobody Puts Baby in a Corner" from Dirty Dancing. It's one of those two. But I'd say it's like a 90% people want me to, ladies want me to just say ditto.
I had seen this movie, The Seventh Sign, and it was just, of all her movies, it was the first one where I felt she had really played a mature role and not a kid. I sensed she had strength and maturity. Bruce and I had always talked about Molly as being having strength.
Well, you know, my character was grounded in probably the most reality than any of them. I mean, I was dealing with the death of a loved one, and the element of fantastic with him potentially being alive, you know, I think is an issue that plays on anyone's heartstrings when they've lost someone.
She's an artist, and she has to endure all this. She needed to cry but not fall apart.
I mean, Demi can literally cry out of one eye or the other, tear, one eye or the other, whatever you want, in a sense. She was remarkable. I mean, she brings tears in a second. She's really quite extraordinary.
It was a extremely unique and fantastic love story. And I think Jerry and the players really made it work. And because it was risky, it made it interesting and juicy.
Demi, after I cast her, she took off to Europe, to France, I think. When she left, she had that nice, pretty long hair. And she came back to a rehearsal, and her hair was short. I can't take credit, I'm afraid, for that hairdo. She just did it. It frightened me a little bit. And I remember taking a photograph, a Polaroid photograph, I still have it somewhere, of Patrick, whose hair had not been cut yet for the movie, so his hair was kind of long, and hers was short. And I had this Polaroid, and I just said, "Oh my God, she looks like the boy, and he looks like the girl." I said, "I'm making this romance," and you have to just say, I'm deathly afraid my first, drama, that people are going to laugh. That it's no matter what I do, it's just all going to be funny. And I'm looking at this picture and thinking, this is not going to work. And then we did film tests, and we all just were like, wow, thank you to me. Thank you for cutting your hair.
It's a fun script. It's very depressing in terms of the way that Sam dies. It's sad and it's deep that way. And then here comes this very peculiar woman, who turns out to be his medium, and then it becomes sort of a high adventure, which I really like. So I liked it because I knew I could sink my teeth into it. She's the connection between good and evil. Because Oda could be very evil. She could be very bad. I mean, she's a sort of a bogus medium, and a scam artist. And so to sort of go straight with her is fun, and it allows for a nice relationship with Sam.
Patrick had a difficulty that I didn't even understand as a writer. All of my focus on the script is on the actors who are talking. And I had, in a sense, completely forgotten as a writer that I had another person in the room watching all this. And that person watching had to be reactive.
It was a really difficult role, actually. And I think that's probably why a lot of actors turned it down, because you can't interact, really. There's so much of the movie is only reacting and not interacting.
It was the most difficult thing I've ever done, because 9 times out of 10, I had to act with no one there. And I had to, once the computerized camera set the shot, I had to hit exact marks when I'm fighting, and I'm fighting no one.
Patrick he expresses the pain well, and empathy, and his emotion shows on his face. He doesn't always need a line. He doesn't need someone to yell at or something. He's just, you see it on his face, which I think, you know, once again made him a wonderful choice for the movie and for this role.
The look of the spirits, especially the dark spirits that come up to take the bodies away, was very much in the script on paper, and it was shadows. I just knew that there was light and there was shadow, and I wanted the shadows to, in a sense, have life, to come alive, and to things that you would look at on the ground as a normal shadow of a car suddenly became something other. It transforms our vision to think of shadows as having some kind of life.
We love the idea of being able to essentially kill people twice. You know, it's great. Everybody's always looking for a great death for a villain, and but we could kill them twice. You know, once they die, and then of course the devils come for them, and we wanted that to be frightening. The sound is actually, I think, babies screaming played slowly.
But the idea that they be shadows was there from early on, and I think that was really an important ingredient in the film. My mother had been an amateur actress when I was a kid and always wanted to be in movies, and I really, more than anything, wanted to give her an opportunity to be in a Hollywood film. And I told Jerry, I really want to put my mother in the movie and maybe even a few other members of my family. And Jerry said, Bruce, when you're the director, you can put your whole family. When you're the writer, you get your mother. And finally, the only role we could find for my mother was the nun who gets the check for the $4 million. My mother is this very prim Jewish lady from Detroit who has never been seen in public without her makeup, ever. That she should appear as a nun in her first film with no makeup was an astounding event, but she couldn't wait to do that. And she had more fun making this movie and had one of the great laughs and one of the great falls when she gets the check and passes out.
The thing I remember that was funny about Wall Street was we had gone on a location scout and picked it because there was this wonderful, here there was just a building, and over here we have them come to the bank, and the idea was to shoot them coming all the way around here. You see this kind of, where the streets come in, it's kind of, it's just an interesting looking, great buildings and all that. And so we come to the set to shoot, and we're starting to set up our cameras, and by the time we get everything ready to, you know, close to roll, the word is out that Patrick Swayze is there and Whoopi Goldberg, and there's 1,000 people on the street. I mean, they're just standing on a shot, and they're New Yorkers, so you can't tell them to leave. You know, any other city, the police could say, "Excuse me, it's everybody, please clear the sidewalks." But they're New Yorkers, and they just stand there. This is our city. You can't tell us to go. So there's nothing they could do. So we just had to shoot the scene against this flat building, and the whole reason we went all the way out to we could have done this anywhere probably. So it's unfortunate we didn't get that look, but you know, it doesn't matter if you have Patrick and Whoopi. You don't need great buildings.
One of the biggest effects Ghost had around the world was it definitely increased the enrollment in pottery classes all over the planet. Ghost brought up a lot of things for me, just in terms of confronting issues about death and is there an afterlife. It made me re-look at my relationship and make me re-fall in love with my wife, you know, before it's too late. You know, because so many times we don't realize just how deep our love goes until it's too late.